I thought I'd seen everything on that river, but nothing prepared me for this. It started with a scream, not from a person, but from a terrified cow trapped at the riverbank, dragging its hooves into the mud as something huge pulled it under the water. At first, we thought it was debris, until the surface erupted. A massive tentacle, thick as a tree branch, wrapped around the cow's legs, yanking it toward the deep end of the river. The water churned like a storm was trapped underneath. People yelled. Someone called the rescue team. And within seconds, they arrived, sliding down the riverbank with ropes, hooks, and nothing but pure determination. But the creature wasn't letting go. Every time the team pulled, it pulled back harder, like a silent monster fighting for its prey.
Come on, easy
what happened
now.
next shocked every single person on that shore, and proved just how fearless this rescue team really is. I've lived near the Cedar Ridge River my whole life. It's the kind of place most people drive past without ever noticing. A long stretch of muddy banks, slow-moving water, old wooden fences half swallowed by weeds, and those wide-open Midwestern skies that make you feel small no matter how long you've lived under them. Nothing dramatic ever happens out here. Most mornings are quiet, slow, predictable, the kind of predictable that makes you forget the world can change in a single second. That morning started like every other. I'd gotten up before the sun because one of our cows, Daisy, had managed to break through the fence again the night before. She'd been slipping through the same spot for weeks, and I kept telling myself I'd fix it tomorrow. Funny how we always think we have endless tomorrows. It was early fall, the air cold enough to sting a little when you breathed, but warm enough that the mist still rose from the river like steam from a giant pot. I grabbed a rope from the shed, whistled for the dog out of habit, then walked toward the lower pasture. The grass was wet with dew, and everything felt strangely still, the way it feels right before a storm, even though the sky was clear. As I walked down the slope toward the river, I heard the soft, panicked mooing before I even saw her. Daisy wasn't the type to panic. She was big, calm, slow, and stubborn, the kind of cow that looked you dead in the eye while stealing grain right out of your hands. So when I heard her crying like that, something in my chest tightened instantly. I picked up my pace. The river came into view through the trees, and that was when everything inside me froze. Daisy wasn't on the bank like I expected. She was in the water. Her front legs were on a muddy ledge, her body tilted forward, back legs half submerged, and she was thrashing hard. She wasn't swimming. She wasn't slipping. She was fighting something. For a second, I couldn't understand what I was seeing. Her whole body jerked backward, almost like she was being pulled. And it made no sense. The river was slow this time of year. There were no currents strong enough to drag down a full-grown cow. I shouted her name, but she didn't even turn her head. Her eyes were wide, wild, terrified in a way I had never seen. I scrambled down the slope, slipping in mud, almost falling twice. As I got closer, I saw it, the thing wrapped around her back legs. At first, I thought it was a long, thick root. Or maybe a bundle of river weeds carried downstream. But then I saw the way it moved. Not with the water. Against it. Tightening. Pulling. Twisting. My stomach dropped. It looked like a tentacle. I know how insane that sounds. I know how unbelievable it is to say that something in a Midwestern river looked like a giant octopus limb. But that's what my brain saw in that moment. Something long, dark, rope-like, curling around Daisy's legs and dragging her deeper. But when I took 2 more steps closer, I realized something important. It wasn't smooth. Octopus arms are smooth and flexible. This thing was rough. Knotty. Tangled. Thick in some places and thin in others. And it wasn't one piece, it was several, twisting together like living ropes. That was when I finally understood. It wasn't an octopus. It wasn't an animal at all. It was debris. But not normal debris. It was a giant mass of torn fishing nets, old nylon ropes, and broken driftwood, probably carried from miles upstream after the last storm. And tangled inside the mess was something heavy. Something that kept sinking. Something that was dragging everything with it. Including Daisy. The tentacles, were long strips of netting wrapped so tightly around her legs that they looked alive. I felt a surge of adrenaline so strong it almost made me dizzy. I waded into the water up to my knees, yelling, "Hold on, girl! Hold on! I'm here!" Even though she couldn't calm down long enough to hear me. The water was freezing. The mud was thick enough to pull the boots right off your feet. Every step felt like walking through cement. And Daisy kept slipping, sinking deeper every time the weight beneath her shifted. I grabbed at the first piece of rope I could reach, pulling with everything I had. It didn't budge. Not even a little. Whatever was trapped beneath the surface was heavy. Too heavy for one person to fight alone. Daisy cried again, a deep, guttural sound, and that noise. I swear it will stay with me forever. It wasn't just fear. It was pain. And panic. And helplessness. I knew I had seconds, not minutes. I backed out of the water and sprinted toward the truck. My hands were shaking so badly, I dropped the keys twice before finally turning the ignition. I grabbed my phone, hit the emergency animal rescue number, and shouted into the receiver, "It's a cow. She's trapped in the river, tangled in something heavy. It's dragging her under. Send someone now." The dispatcher's tone changed instantly. "Is the animal in immediate danger?" "Yes. Stay where you are. Help is on the way." Those were the longest words I'd ever heard. I raced back to the river and dropped to my knees next to Daisy. She was trembling. Her whole body shook with every pull. I kept trying to soothe her, even though I knew my voice couldn't fix anything. "I'm here. You're okay. You're not going anywhere. Just hold on." But the truth was harsh. I couldn't free her. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the strength. And she was losing the fight. At one point, her front legs slipped entirely off the bank, and her head dipped into the water. I lunged forward, grabbing her collar, pulling it toward me with every bit of strength I had left. I wasn't strong enough to lift her, not even close, but I managed to angle her head just enough above the water so she could breathe. My arms were burning. My legs were shaking. The cold water felt like knives. And Daisy kept fighting the debris, only sinking deeper. Then I heard it, the sound of tires on gravel, fast, skidding, doors slamming, boots hitting the ground, and voices yelling. The rescue team had arrived. And not a second too soon. I don't think I'll ever forget the sight of that rescue truck sliding to a stop near the riverbank. It was one of those older county vehicles, white paint faded by sun, red lights still flashing from the call. Before the truck even fully stopped, 3 people were already jumping out, grabbing gear as they ran. I recognized all of them. There was Mark, the team lead, big guy, late 40s, calm in every crisis. I'd seen him pull a trapped deer out of a culvert last year like it was nothing. Then Shelby, younger but sharp, the type who could climb anything and cut through anything. And Tom, the older volunteer with a quiet voice and strong hands, carrying a coil of rope over his shoulder. They didn't waste a single second. "What do we got?" Mark shouted as he jogged toward me. I pointed to the water, my breath shaky. "She's tangled in something, a whole mess of nets or ropes. It's pulling her under. I can't see the bottom." Mark crouched beside me, eyes scanning the water with that quick, trained focus. Daisy let out another deep cry and jerked backward, nearly pulling me with her. I had my hands on her collar, trying to keep her head above water. Mark didn't hesitate. "Tom, get the harness. Shelby, take the cutting kit. We need to move now." They all slid down into the water, not caring how cold it was. Shelby waded in closest to me. "You holding her head up?" she asked. "Trying," I said, my arms shaking from exhaustion. "Keep doing that. It's saving her." She pulled out a long orange-handled cutter and leaned forward, trying to grab a piece of the tangled net that wrapped around Daisy's legs. As soon as she touched it, the whole mass tightened again, like something heavy shifted below. Shelby's eyes widened slightly. "That's not just net. Something big is stuck down there with her." She wasn't wrong. Every few seconds the river seemed to pulse, pulling Daisy deeper, then releasing slightly, then pulling again. Like a rhythm. Like the weight below was drifting and sinking at intervals. Mark waded in up to his waist and started testing the tension with his hands. "It's deep," he muttered. "Feels like a whole tree or log got wrapped up in the netting." I felt guilt burn inside me. I should have fixed the fence sooner. She wouldn't have. Mark cut me off quickly. "This isn't your fault. This river drags down debris for miles. Nobody sees it until something like this happens." But even with his reassurance, the guilt stayed like a stone in my stomach. Daisy jerked again, hard, and suddenly her head dipped underwater. I panicked, yelling her name and pulling upward with everything I had. Mark grabbed my arm. "Easy, you're gonna get dragged in." "I'm not letting her drown," I snapped. He didn't argue. He just nodded and helped me brace her head up while Shelby worked on cutting the first visible knot. But every time she freed one piece, another sunk deeper into the mud. "I need a better angle," she muttered. "I can't reach the knot at her right leg." Tom stepped in with a long pole hook and used it to pull at the debris beneath the surface. The pole bent sharply, and his eyes went wide. "That's no small log," he whispered. "Feels like a whole root system buried under there." Mark's jaw tightened. "Okay. New plan. We secure her first." He motioned to Tom. "Get the chest harness. If she goes under, at least we'll have a lift point." Tom waded back to shore, grabbed a thick padded harness from the truck, and returned. Mark took one strap and I took the other. Together, we wrapped it under Daisy's chest as carefully as we could while she kicked and struggled. It took all three of us to buckle it in place. Shelby knelt deeper into the water, reaching both arms in now, trying to feel where the main knot started. She gasped suddenly. "I found the core tangle," she said. "But it's buried. It feels like the net is wrapped around something that sank." "What kind of something?" Tom asked. She shook her head. "Feels like metal. Smooth in some places, jagged in others. Metal. Underwater. Caught in nets and ropes. Dragging down everything around it." My mind raced. Could have been an old engine block tossed illegally into the river. A broken boat part. Debris from last season's floods. Whatever it was deadly. Mark looked at me, voice suddenly serious. "She's not going to survive long if we don't free at least one leg soon. She's losing strength." I knew. I felt it. Her breathing was more ragged now. Her body trembled harder. She kept trying to stand, only to slip again. Her front hooves dug grooves into the muddy bank, but every time the hidden weight pulled, she slid another inch backwards. "I'm going deeper," Shelby said, already lowering herself into the river until the water came up to her shoulders. "If I can reach the center knot, I can cut the whole thing loose." Mark hesitated. "The current's unpredictable deeper in. Do not get under that net." "I won't," she said. "Just keep her steady." She took a deep breath and leaned forward, half her face going into the water, feeling along Daisy's submerged leg with both hands. I stopped breathing. Everything in me tensed. Half a minute passed. Then another. Then Shelby came up gasping. "I can't see anything, the water's too murky. But I can feel it." The net's wrapped around something shaped like, maybe an old trap? Or a crate. Something square. "Can you cut it?" Mark asked. "I can try." She pulled the cutter back down and went underwater again, completely this time. My heart jumped into my throat. I hated not being able to see her. I hated the silence. I hated feeling Daisy's panic in the trembling of her body. 10 seconds passed. 20. 30. Then Shelby burst up, coughing and wiping her eyes. I cut one tie, but the main net is still locked around that metal piece. We need to pull the weight up or move it somehow. Mark swore under his breath. "We don't have a winch strong enough for that." Tom spoke up quietly. I have an idea, but it's risky. We all turned. There's an old aluminum ladder in the truck, he said. If we wedge it under the main knot and use it like a lever, we might be able to lift the weight just enough for her leg to free. Mark stared at him for a long second, then nodded. Let's do it. Tom rushed to get the ladder, dragging it toward the river. Mark and Shelby positioned themselves on either side of Daisy. Before they started, Mark looked at me. Whatever happens next, you keep her head up. Don't let go. Not for a second. I nodded. I won't. I wrapped both arms around her neck, holding her steady as the rescue team climbed into position. Daisy moaned softly, exhausted, scared, slipping in and out of full panic. Mark grabbed the ladder. All right, team, on 3. Shelby steadied the base. Tom braced the side. The metal groaned as they pushed it under the water. 1. Hold tight. 2. She's slipping. 3. They heaved. The river shifted. Something deep below scraped loudly, metal grinding against stone, and Daisy jerked so violently that all 3 rescuers nearly lost their balance. Then something terrifying happened. The ladder moved. Not just moved, it twisted like the entire weight beneath it shifted position again, sinking even deeper, dragging the net with it. And with one sudden, horrible motion, Daisy was pulled almost entirely under. Her whole body tilted sideways, water rushing over her back, her head dropping dangerously close to the river's surface. I screamed her name and tightened my grip, fighting with everything inside me to keep her head above the water. Mark shouted, "Hold her up. Don't let her go under." But she was slipping. Hard. Faster than before. The hidden weight was sinking deeper, and taking her with it. And for the first time since the rescue team arrived, I felt truly helpless. We were losing her. I don't think I've ever felt fear like that moment. The moment Daisy's entire body lurched sideways and the water swallowed half of her face. It was like time bent around me. Everything slowed. Sound dropped away. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat and the violent rush of the river. Her head was slipping from my grip. "No, no, no," I shouted as I fought to keep it above the surface. My boots slid on the muddy bank, and for a second I thought I was going into the water with her. Shelby lunged toward me, grabbing the back of my jacket with one hand. "Don't fall in. Stay planted," she yelled. But her voice sounded distant, muffled like I was underwater already. Daisy gave one last desperate kick, the kind that comes from pure instinct, pure will to survive. That kick was the only reason I didn't lose her head beneath the water completely. It gave me a second, 1 second, to reposition my arms under her jaw and heave upward with everything I had. She gasped, a wet, shuddering gasp, and I swear it felt like both of us came back to life in that one breath. Mark was yelling behind me. "The ladder, move the ladder left, it's sinking again." Tom grunted as he tried to shift the ladder's angle. "It's stuck under something, something sharp, it's catching." Shelby, still gripping my jacket with one hand, barked at him. "Don't pull it free, if that net tightens again she's done." The river surged suddenly, a small wave, but strong enough that water slapped against Daisy's side. I felt her body trembling. She wasn't strong anymore. She was tired, dangerously tired. Animals don't last long in cold water. All her muscles had been fighting for too long. "She's shutting down," Shelby muttered, voice low and tight. "We're running out of time." I didn't respond. I couldn't. All I could do was keep my arms locked under Daisy's head while her weight grew heavier and heavier. She was leaning on me completely now. She wasn't even trying to lift her head by herself. And that scared me more than anything. Every so often her legs twitched, but it wasn't strength, it was panic. Reflex. Fear. Mark waded closer to me. "We're changing the plan. Shelby, underwater go. Tom, get ready to pull." My stomach dropped. "Underwater? What do you mean?" I asked. Shelby turned toward me slowly. I could see fear in her eyes, but also determination. I'm going under the net mass, she said. If I can't cut it from the top, I need to find the main anchor point underneath. No, I said immediately. It's too dangerous. You don't even know what's down there. I know enough, she answered. Something heavy is wedged deep. If we don't free one of her legs soon, she'll drown. We don't have another option. Mark backed her up. She's right. We've seen these river debris traps before. Old nets, driftwood, metal scraps. Sometimes the main knot is hidden under a log or caught on a sharp object. Tom added quietly, and sometimes the only way to free it is from the bottom. I felt sick. What if she gets caught in the net too? What if the current pulls her under? Shelby reached out and squeezed my shoulder. I'll be fast. And I'll stay on the outside edge. But we don't have time to argue. She turned to Mark. If I disappear for more than 20 seconds, pull me out. Hard. Mark nodded grimly. Shelby took a deep breath, slipped the cutting tool into her sleeve for easier access, and lowered herself into the water, inch by inch. The river swallowed her shoulders, her neck, her chin. Then she was gone. Just bubbles rising. I stared at the water so hard my eyes burned. My mind kept whispering the worst things. She's trapped. She's stuck. She can't breathe. She's tangled too. But Mark stood perfectly still, counting slowly under his breath. 1, 2, 3. Each number lasted forever. Around 10 seconds in, the water shifted. A long, dark shape moved beneath the surface. Not an animal, just a shadow of tangled netting and wood shifting with Shelby's movements. But then something else happened. A loud metallic scrape echoed through the water. Then another. Then a dull thud. Mark frowned. What the hell is that? Tom tightened his grip on the ladder, his eyes narrowing. That sounded like metal. Something hollow. I felt a chill run across my skin despite the cold. What does that mean? He shook his head. I don't know. But whatever's down there isn't just a log. Then, suddenly, the river erupted. Not violently. Not like in movies. But enough. A burst of bubbles shot to the surface near Daisy's legs, and the net tightened again, pulling downward harder than before. I screamed. Shelby! Shelby! Come up! Mark lunged forward, reaching into the water blindly. Then she surfaced, gasping loudly, coughing hard, her face pale. She barely had time to wipe the water from her eyes before she spoke. It's a crate, she choked out. A big metal crate. Rusted. Probably washed down from upstream. The net is tied around one corner. The crate is full of something heavy, maybe stones, maybe scrap. It's wedged in a pit in the riverbed. Mark stared at her. A crate? That deep? She nodded. And it's sinking further. Fast. I felt sick. How do we free her then? Shelby steadied her breathing. I can cut the net from the underside, but I have to go deeper. And I need both hands. It'll take at least 2 dives. Mark grabbed her arm. No more than 20 seconds each time. Understood. Understood, she said. She took one more breath, and went under again. This time the silence felt different. Heavier. Like the river itself was holding its breath with us. Tom braced the ladder again, shifting his weight to keep the metal from slipping deeper. Mark positioned himself near Daisy's rear leg, ready to grab hold the moment something loosened. I locked my arms around her head again and leaned my weight backward to counter the pull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a sharp tug. Daisy's body jolted. The net tightened suddenly around her leg, then loosened slightly, then tightened again. Come on, Shelby, Mark muttered. Come on, kid. The river rippled. The ladder shook. Something scraped under the surface, metal grinding against metal. Then, Shelby burst upward, gasping as she slammed her hand on the bank for support. "One cut left," she shouted. "But this one is tight, the crate is wedged under rock." Mark steadied her. "You can do it. Just one more dive." Shelby nodded shakily. "Give me 5 seconds. Then I go." She leaned forward, catching her breath, staring at the river like it was an enemy she had to face. I swallowed hard. "You're saving her," I whispered. She didn't look at me. She just said softly, "Not yet." After 5 seconds, she inhaled as deeply as she could, and went under again. This dive was longer. Too long. Mark started counting faster. 12, 13, 14. Bubbles rose. But not many. My heart was slamming against my ribs. 17, 18. I leaned forward, eyes scanning the water wildly. I couldn't see her. I couldn't see anything. 19. Then it happened. A violent jerk, powerful enough to nearly pull everyone off their feet. The net tightened, stretched, then snapped. Daisy's right leg kicked free so abruptly she almost knocked Mark into the river. Shelby shot upward a second later, coughing hard, clutching a shredded piece of net in her hand. "She's free on one side." Shelby wheezed. "We need to pull her now." Mark didn't hesitate. "Everyone pull." We all dug our heels into the mud. Daisy cried, a deep, frightened, exhausted sound, but she kicked with her newly freed leg, fighting to gain footing. The weight beneath her shifted. The river sucked downward again. The crate was sinking fast. If we didn't pull now, we'd lose her forever. Again. Mark yelled, "Pull!" And we did. With everything we had. Every muscle. Every breath. Every scrap of hope. The river fought back. But for the first time, we had the upper hand. I don't think I'll ever forget the sound the river made in that moment. It wasn't a splash. It wasn't a crash. It was something deeper, almost like the water growled. 1 second, the surface was calm enough for the team to approach slowly. The next second, the water heaved upward, as if something underneath pushed against it with real force. And in that split second, every comforting thought I had vanished. This wasn't over. Not even close. The first sign of trouble. Bennett, the lead rescuer, was still positioned near the bank with that long aluminum pole, the hook on the end just inches from the ropes tangled around the cow's leg. He had been getting ready to try to cut the last piece when the water surged upward, almost knocking him off balance. "Back! Back!" he yelled, scrambling sideways. The 2 rescue team members in the canoe didn't even get time to ask what happened. Something bumped their canoe hard from underneath, lifting the left side for a second. The canoe didn't flip, thank God, but the men inside instinctively grabbed the sides. "What was that?" one shouted. Bennett didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because I saw it too. From where I stood on the bank, hands shaking, I saw something move under the water, a long, thick shadow. It drifted beneath the cow, then circled back, slow but heavy. The kind of movement that belongs to something large. Something that knows the water better than we did. "It's a damn catfish," someone behind me muttered. "A big one." But Bennett shook his head before the sentence even ended. "Not a catfish. It's too coordinated." Coordinated. That word stayed stuck in my throat like a stone. The cow panics. The cow must have sensed it too. Animals always sense danger before we do. She let out a panicked bellow, loud and terrified, her whole body jerking against the ropes that held her to the log. For a horrifying moment, I thought she might snap her leg trying to break free. She kicked, splashing water violently, twisting her head toward the underwater shape. "Easy, girl. Easy," one of the canoe rescuers shouted. But nothing was calming her now. She knew something was coming. And when the cow gets scared, the rescuers get scared, because frightened livestock are unpredictable. And unpredictable animals in a river can get people killed. "Okay, we're changing the plan," Bennett called. "We're pulling her out now, ready or not." that's when everything happened at once. The creature surfaces. Just for a moment, one of the rope lines connected to the winch suddenly tightened, pulling the cow a few inches closer to shore. On land, 2 rescuers were turning the crank fast, their boots digging into the mud for leverage. The mud slipped under them, but they kept pulling. Just as they tugged again, the large shadow under the cow surged upward. And for half a second, literally half a second, something broke the surface behind her. Not fully. Not clearly. Just enough. Enough to see a flash of something wide and mottled, like dark, rubbery skin. Enough to see a shape that didn't match any Midwest fish I'd ever seen. Enough to make me suck in a breath so fast I nearly choked. One of the canoe guys yelled so loud it echoed up the river. "What the hell is that?" It splashed back under before anyone could answer. But we all saw it. We all felt the water shake from the force of it. I didn't know what lived in that river. But I knew it wasn't ordinary. "Just keep pulling," Bennett roared. The river fights back. The winch strained, whining under the pressure, pulling the cow inch by inch toward the muddy bank. But the river wasn't about to give her up easily. Every time she moved closer, the shadow beneath her circled faster, cutting wide loops in the water. The surface rippled in spirals. And then it hit her. Not a bite. A shove. A full body slam against her side, powerful enough to push her several feet sideways, straight into deeper water. "Hold the line,"